Hi everybody and welcome to another Kalicube Roundtable with Wordlift. Today with Alessandro Grassi and Alessio Nittoli. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for
Brilliant.
inviting
I'm going to
us,
sing the song.
Jason.
Sure. Hello,
first
and
one.
we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Alessandro and Alessio. And I got mixed up.
Fantastic.
I said
Amazing.
that halfway through each of your names, I would mix them up, and I completely managed to do that, which is more shame on me. Everybody who's watching, if you've got any questions, please do post them in the chat. I'm really interested to hear your questions. I've got gazillions because I want to know how to build an NLG workflow that impacts my business. And I actually was playing around with ChatGPT at 3 o'clock in the morning the other day because I couldn't sleep. And my reaction to it was fairly mixed. What are you finding, Alessandro? Is reaction purely positive? I mean, it seems to be fashionable. Is it really that good?
Well, I think it's good, but it's not. I mean, it's the new thing. We are all talking about it. Everyone have access to it, and they're playing with it. So I think it's something really interesting. But I would say that our workflow is something, and what we are going to show you is something that I don't want to say it's better, but it's cool as well.
It takes it to the next level. I mean, I found ChatGPT pretty limited once I got started. Alessio, what's your take on it?
I guess that GPT is a tool, like it was the printer, and we should consider as an help for writing and not as substitute for writers and copywriters. But we know so little about this new technology, and more is yet to come.
Brilliant.
Let's see how.
Okay, I'll quote you on that. ChatGPT is just like a printer. How delightful. That's got us off to a wonderful start. Alessandro, can you introduce yourself really quickly? I know you work for Wordlift and you've just told me you're in Barcelona, whereas I thought you were in Rome.
Yeah, I live in Barcelona, like between Rome and Barcelona, actually. And I'm a project manager and content marketing manager in Wordlift. I'm here to talk about this incredible topic, which is NLG, and I'll leave the word to Alessio.
Brilliant. Off you go, Alessio.
Okay. So my name is Alessio Nittoli, and I am working as SEO specialist at EssilorLuxottica. I am part of the global performance marketing team, where we manage hundreds of popular eyewear around the globe. Just to name a few, I work daily with brands like Ray-Ban, Oakley, and Sunglass Hut, but the list is likely infinite. And I am passionate about AI applied to text generation and SEO, and I've been using GPT-3 since its release back in 2020. One of my main goals in EssilorLuxottica is to integrate this technology with the help of Wordlift and integrating that into our content workflows and generate content at scale.
Right, Brett, and we've already talked about this, Alessio. I think it was last year, it might have been the year before. Super smart and incredibly interesting with some great processes. And I can see why you're such great friends with Wordlift. That must be a marriage made in heaven.
Totally.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. So one thing I didn't understand, I thought Alessandro was going to explain what's in NLG AI models, but in fact, he tells me you're going to explain it to me, Alessio. So can you explain what's in an NLG AI model? Because I used ChatGPT, I thought it was fun, but I've got no idea what's behind it.
Yeah, so basically GPT-3 and ChatGPT are models called large language models that belongs to the family of transformers. That is a particular architecture, but basically large language models have only one goal, that is predict the next word given a context.
Right.
And they are pretty good, as you have seen with ChatGPT. That is a fine-tuned model. We will take a look at what this means. But yeah, enough for now. High-level
Right.
view of what.
So I mean, I think the huge point there is that it's a trained model. It's not just this thing that spits out amazing text. It's been trained, so it does specific things. One example I use is if you say to a machine learning model 1, you would expect the next thing to be 2. But if you've trained it only on song titles, the next one could be step, as in One Step Beyond, which is the Madness song. So these models depend a great deal on the data they've been fed. Alessandro, how would you kind of assess that as being the fundamentally important thing? Is the data it's been fed is going to affect greatly what it's going to spit out?
Well, I think that the really important part, as we will say in our pitch, is that you need to have the data inside your knowledge graph to have all the information for creating a model and a system, not even just a model, that give you all the tone of voice and all the information that you are trying to get. For example, in generating product description, or in answering some question, or in as you said, try to predict the next word, but in the way that you expect.
Mm-hmm. Right, and in the way that you expect is hugely important for me, and that my example of One Step Beyond is the thing that I trick people with, and that kind of point of having a knowledge graph and feeding it. I mean, ChatGPT had an immense amount of data. Google's just going to beat it because Google's got so much data and presumably can build something much better and in a shorter space of time simply because of the amount of data they've got. Alessio, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that Google is not showing us its cards yet, but we expect a move from them. We read like every day that they are making some secret meetings where they are discussing about what ChatGPT threat is for Google. In my opinion, is not a threat for Google, simply because OpenAI trained that model on a large portion of unstructured data, while Google is far away on this topic. And for example, I guess that Google will use a lot of the knowledge data to improve the factuality of these models. That is a big topic.
Yeah, and getting it wrong and lying is one of the things I saw with ChatGPT. Is I asked it for a description of something and pasted in a text, and it just made up lots of facts that simply weren't true, and that's hugely problematic. I mean, I was once again playing around with it at 3 o'clock in the morning, looking at it and thinking, A, it's very boring. B, it always says the same thing. It keeps repeating itself. And C, it sometimes makes up stuff that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Alessio, sorry.
ChatGPT, like GPT, is very prone to hallucination, and you basically telling what you expect, the model can write some non-true thing, and they are called basically hallucination.
Right. And it writes code very well. If you say to it, write me a WordPress plugin to do this, that, and the other, it can probably write the WordPress plugin and it would more or less function, but you can't trust it to tell you the truth about my career or my company's career. Alessandro, for product and the work that you're doing, you're training individual models within Wordlift using the knowledge graphs that you have rather than relying on open source.
Yeah, exactly. And we I mean, we have several steps that we do on every model, but we fine tune the model, and to avoid the hallucination that Alessio was talking before, we have 2 steps. I mean, 3 steps actually of validation,
Right.
because it's really important to have the validation in place to confirm that the information you're providing to the SERP are good and are true. I mean, we don't want to say that this sunglasses is blue if we're talking
Right.
about white sunglasses.
Yeah, and if you're presenting structured data to Google in the form of schema markup using your knowledge graph, you're explicitly saying we have checked this information and we're presenting it to you as fact. And if you get it wrong, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And I'll come back one step, is that you said we have a 3-step process. A friend of mine said everything in 3s, and I've become obsessed by it. And what strikes me is if you're only doing 2 steps, you're probably not doing enough. And if you're doing 4, you're probably wasting resources. This is my new theory that I just made up. So that's you can quote me on that, and it might be totally wrong, but I'm definitely going with it. So Alessio, you were going to tell us how EssilorLuxottica, which I can hardly say, leverages AI for marketing, which is the more pragmatic stuff.
Yeah, we leverage AI in the marketing team very often. We are very active in researching and testing new AI technologies that can be beneficial for our business. We have been using GPT-3 for almost years, testing different workflows for different content formats on different brands. And we use some other transformer-based models beyond GPT-3 to perform tasks like internal linking or content categorization, just to name a few. But automation is not without challenges, because, for example, the content generation at scale needs a lot of collaboration across the teams. We generate tens of thousands pieces of content, so it's humanly impossible to check them by hand. And so it's a cooperative job across the content, the product, and the SEO teams. You had one of my former colleagues on Kalicube Tuesdays, Giovanni Carpinelli, back in November 2021.
Right.
And I mean, a lot of workflows were already in place, but we are trying to taking them to the next level thanks to the help of Wordlift. Because without proper automated validation methods, that is the main challenge to me, the content teams can be under even more pressure, because it's not a one-off process, because we work a lot with fine-tuned models, and we need to continuously learn how to use this tool that is GPT-3 to get the most out of the model and keep refining the input and the output. This leads me to why we use a fine-tuned model, because we need to have more domain knowledge and avoid to start from scratch every time, because GPT-3 was trained on the open internet, picking pieces of Wikipedia, pieces of GitHub, pieces of, Gutenberg library. And so it could be not accurate when it comes to business topics. It could not recognize every brand that is on this world. And another good reason that Alessandro was introducing was that we have so many brands, and every brand has a different tone of voice, because we have different audience, and a fine-tuned model helps us to achieve this tone of voice.
I think the word fine-tuned is incredibly important. It's something we don't really think about. And the other thing is the brand's tone of voice. For me, I just thought it was boring. All the results it spat back at me were just dull. And so what you're saying, Alessio, and what you do, Alessandro, is fine-tune the model so that it can speak or it can write, or it can create in a manner that corresponds to my brand voice, for example, at Kalicube?
Yeah, because at the very beginning, we ask with the data, and that can be, for example, the product feed or whatever you have for your product, if they are products, a set of rules that you want to bring into the completion, and maybe you don't want to talk, for example, talking about brands. I remember one brand with EssilorLuxottica didn't want to talk about plastic in their completions, but another one didn't have a problem to talk about plastic. So it's really dependent on that, but also on way of saying things. So in this way, you have the tone of voice of one specific brand, and in this other way, you can with this word you can express really the tone of voice of another brand. So maybe you cannot use cheap, but you can use peculiar. I mean, it's really a matter of words in the end.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, we've got this message, but I don't know what it says. Something from San Francisco.
Hello, guys. I'm really proud here from San Francisco. Yeah.
Brilliant. It was an Italian for anybody who doesn't see the screen. And my Italian is absolutely terrible. But that's not the point for today. And the other question is the specific topic. Is what I found with ChatGPT is that it corrected me. It said, you are wrong, when I told it how to correct the contents of a knowledge panel. And in fact, the machine is wrong. What it was doing was spitting back at me what the general internet population thinks is the way to correct a knowledge panel, which is click on the feedback button, etc., etc., etc. And I said all there are other ways of doing it through entity homes corroboration, infinite loop of self-corroboration. And it literally said to me, that is incorrect. I mean, I don't know where that leads us, but Alessio, have you had that kind of problem where the machine actually says things that are not true or contradicts you when you're actually right?
Absolutely, yes. Like every day and every time I use ChatGPT, mainly because, as I was saying, it was trained on a huge amount of unstructured data. And so what the model generates is only the word that it's thinking that it's more coherent to that context. And this leads to inaccuracy in factual. Yeah, for example, if you try to...
Sorry, it actually leads me to a point. I'm really sorry to interrupt. I keep saying ChatGPT because that's the fashionable thing at the moment. Everyone's using it. But in fact, we're talking about GPT-3, and it's one example of it. And you guys are using different models that have been fine-tuned. So finish what you were saying and continue with that idea. Is we're talking about GPT-3.
Yeah, just to add more context to avoid also errors. ChatGPT is the same of GPT-3. Sorry, to be more precise, it's GPT 3.5 because it's a updated model that has data until, I guess, 2021, if I'm not wrong, while the previous generation, GPT-3, has data only up to 2019. Right. And so they basically have adjusted with the help of human validators. You can notice the two thumbs, up thumbs and down thumbs in ChatGPT, and they use that basically as a feedback to fine-tune even more the output by ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is only a fine-tuned version that is performing very well in conversational interface. Returning back to the topic we were discussing about knowledge data and accuracy, factual accuracy. Sorry for the regression, but yeah. The problem is that GPT does not have structured data like the I don't know, schema.org, or for example, RDF triples, and so on. And I know that some companies are trying to integrate some sort of knowledge graph, like for example, AI21 with their one of their model. They are trying to use that as fallback when the model is not able to give an output. For example, often we see that GPT-3 is not very good at math, is not able to do some calculation. And for example, that would be a case where a third-party integration could be used as fallback to solve the input provided by the user. Another one would be when we are trying to ask to the model who is, I don't know, the current president of the USA, because obviously if the model has that information up to 2021, it could be inaccurate, and thus you need another source of truth that could be the knowledge graph itself, even if sometime it could be delayed in the update.
Sure.
But
Alessandro.
Because at the very beginning, if you ask ChatGPT who was the first female president of the United States, he was responding Hillary Clinton.
Right.
And now it's corrected because, of course, they correct stuff as well.
Yeah, sure. And so, sorry, go ahead, Alessio.
This is an hallucination, as I was saying before. Another cool hallucination is trying to ask ChatGPT who is the first man to have traversed the English Channel by foot. For example, if you type that on Google search, the search engine will give you technically a correct answer, because it will say that you cannot traverse the channel by foot. The only way is to be on a ferry.
Right.
While, for example, ChatGPT will not distinguish between swim or walking.
Right. Yeah, and as you're saying, a total lack of understanding and simply predicting and working with the data it's got without understanding the difference between a road and sea, which is a really, really, really good point from the perspective of, as human beings, we see this stuff coming out, we think, wow, that's smart, it's intelligent. And in fact, the machine is very, very, very stupid, and it's just predicting and working forwards. It's the people who built it who were super smart. And from your perspective, the scaling, you were saying, Alessio, that what you use is automated processes to verify. What did you mean by that? You spit out 10,000 product descriptions, and then you have another automated process that cross-checks them.
So I think that for product description is less trivial to generate accurate text, because the entities involved are, let me say, simpler than, for example, generating news articles. So it's an easier task. But for example, on FAQ, generation is more difficult because, for example, we have tried to generate FAQ for medical sites, but we need always a third-party validation from our expert team. Otherwise, it would be impossible to publish this inaccurate data, and it would also be very dangerous.
100%. I think we often get lazy and think, well, I'll just push it into the machine, and all of a sudden it will all come right. And that laziness, we suddenly get frustrated with something because it isn't as easy as we expected. And here's a good point from Gabriella Sanino, which is actually for specific people. As you said, it's out of date, it gets it wrong. And Google is going to have a huge advantage because it can remain up to date. Perhaps we should move on to the slide presentation, Alessandro. I was really excited, or I still am very excited about this. is how to build an NLG workflow that impacts your business. We've talked about the theory, we've talked about hallucinations, which I absolutely love in one sense and are slightly frightened by in another. Alessandro, take it away. How can we actually put this into practice?
Yeah, so that's the title, and that's what we are going to discuss today. This is me, and we already talked about it. Here are my contacts. So first thing first, I like to put the first question every person always asks me when I tell them that I'm working with natural language generation, and especially if they are in my same field, or if they are writers, or if they are editor. They're always scared that they're going to lose their job, and they're asking me if natural language generation is going to replace human writers. So the point for me is that this is not even the right questions, because we are not. We need to change the perspective here. We don't need to imagine the AI, the model, the NLG as an enemy, but as an ally. It can be a great tool. It can be integrated in a great system or workflow to generate a really good quality and high quality text. And so, but what I did one thing which is related to of what we're talking about before, which is ask directly to ChatGPT to read this question. So the answer was I don't know if it's not starting, maybe because it's a GIF. Well, okay, I tell you. Well, the answer was no. NLG is not likely to replace human writers. While natural language generation has advanced significantly in the recent years, it still lacks the creativity, nuance, and depth of thought that human writers possess. And additionally, humans have unique experiences and perspective which are not replicable by a machine. So we know that, and for that, I ask him again to see if I get a different answer, and the answer is still the same. And I have to say, I'm kind of aligned with the thought that ChatGPT put in here, which is in the end, as you can see, it's more likely that natural language generation will be used as a tool, as we know. But I think that the quality will always win against the quantity, and in the search engine of the future, we will see that. For me, of course, but we already know that Google is trying to face this problem, and at some point it will come out with some solution to face the problem that the AI generated content is giving on the SERP. Here I put another quote that I really liked on an article that I read recently from Mary Arrington on Unheard, which is humans will defeat chatbot. This is the perspective on the other side, rather than my friends and colleagues that are scared by the chatbot. And one of the point which is really funny for me is that the machine still can meme, so may it never learn. And I think that as a meme fan and follower, I can say that I think that as at the level of a human, the machine will never be able to generate this kind of content. And here I put some consideration about the NLG, and then I leave the word to Alessio. I don't want to talk just by myself. So as I was saying, quality always win against quantity, and we also in our workflow we are trying to put the quality in the center, and this is why we are not generating like 10,000 product description for week, but we are going on a number which is a less, but is qualitatively superior. And as I was saying before, data in the knowledge graph are fundamental for the high quality content, the tone of voice, and also for the validation, as we will see in the next slide. And I want to believe this, but I also think that the human is still central into the NLG system, because without the human in the system, we will have just machine talking between each other, and it's not the point of the internet in the end.
Yeah, totally. If I just can add some more comments here, we have basically two ways to ensure high quality content using NLG systems. The first one is obviously being able to feed the model with high quality data already human validated. In this way, the model can imitate the data that were used to fine-tune the model. And the second main quality point is that the human, is central. I mean, it's just a tool, because only humans can access the quality of a piece of content given a use case.
Right. I mean, the one problem for us as human beings, I think, is we saw the answer that Alessandro got from ChatGPT about whether or not it will replace us all. And it sounds intelligent, and we make that association, that series of words, we think that's an intelligent machine. In fact, it isn't. It's repeating what it has learned from the data it's been fed, or potentially somebody actually wrote in the specific answer to override the actual AI to make sure it answers correctly.
Yeah, exactly. ChatGPT, the answers Alessandro got is a clear example of human validators in action, because I bet that if you run the same prompt into the playground of GPT-3, I guess that you could also have different answers. And if you had even more context, I don't know, act like Skynet in Terminator, it could give another answer.
That's a brilliant point.
I guess, I mean, prompt is everything with these systems, but we cannot forget that these models are basically statistical models, and we are far from general artificial intelligence.
Absolutely, that's a really good point. Really glad you made it. Alessandro, carry on, sorry.
Yeah, no, and this is why also I stopped at the second try with the answer. I didn't want another answer from ChatGPT. So let's start seeing the first workflow. This is the one that we are using for the PDPs. As you can see in the first step, we have the NLG, then the fine-tune model. We have the fine-tune model and the prompting inside here. I didn't put all the process because otherwise we will take a couple of days to do this webinar, but it's okay. I think we have an idea. And from the generated completion, we can have a confidence, which is high, or an uncertain answer, an uncertain PDPs in this case. In the case of the confident, we go through the validation, and the validation is functioning as an active learning process, as we can see. So we improve the model every time that we put into it a new validation rules. and we improve the validation pipeline as well. So after the validation that we'll see in focus in a couple of slides later on, we can go on the output and we can generate our completion. If the completion is uncertain, we need the human, of course. So we can go through the human that is going to edit the completion. The validation is divided in 3 steps, as I was saying, and these 3 steps are: is the information available in the text? Or the second is the available information correct? And the third one is the text valid in terms of SEO and content guidelines? Because of course, we always have to remember that we're not just generating product description. We are generating product description that are SEO oriented, in the tone of voice of the brand, with that needs to respect some rules. So the first validation, as we can see in the first step, we have the detected attributes, which are the lens color, the brand, and the product type. But we didn't found the product name, which is really important, of course, for a product description of the product, the lens material, the frames material, the gender, and the template color. If we go through another generation and we run again the validation, we see that we found in the new A, we found the product name, but we still missed the lens material and the frames material and the gender, which in some case could be good because not every brand needs to mention all these kind of things. And in the new B, we have some attributes that are wrong. So we can see that we have the blue lenses, and in this case, the lenses are not blue. So this first step of validation is really important to give us a result that is something good and scalable, because otherwise we need to check every kind of every completion, and it is not possible because otherwise you need a team just for that, and it loses the sense to generate with AI the completion. The second step of the validation, it starts with the rules, as I was saying before, and also the glossary of the brand. And we can imagine it as a Grammarly, which is a tool really good for people not mother tongue like me. But as we can see, it goes like a basic grammar corrector in this flow here. It detects the hyphen, and in the case of if needed, it add or remove the hyphens. It checks the punctuation, other correction, which can be comma, repetition, or whatever. And we have the output with the corrected plus the corrected text plus the reason of the correction. So, for example, here you have a repetition. Here you have an hyphen that was not respected. So, and this is the first workflow. I don't know if you want to add something, Ale.
Well, I had a couple of things that really, number one is the reason that you've got there is this idea that AI and machine learning needs to justify itself, which I really love. It's saying to the machine, here's what have you done to, justify yourself as to why you made these decisions, which then allows us as human beings to say, well, you were working on the wrong precepts and we can correct you. And the other is, in the text you were showing before, is how on earth does it know what's important, what's fact and cannot be changed, and what's descriptive and needs to be changed to make it more attractive? That's a huge problem that I'd never thought about before.
Yeah, basically we are staking different layers and different neural networks that helps the model, the main model that generates text, to improve automatically, but asking to the model the reason is basically helps the model to, sorry for the pun, but to explain better himself. Which
is kind of semi-human from my perspective. It's saying, think about why you're doing what you're doing, but the machine isn't actually thinking. So that justification is, once again, where's it coming from? Prediction?
Yeah, it's a statistical reasoning. A task that is often used when evaluating a natural language processing model is the reasoning to explain why the model has taken some decision instead of others. And this is a clear example of that. The main difference between GPT-3 based model and other is that with GPT-3 is easier to let's say fine-tune the model with the prompt engineering without being a tech savvy. And so in the prompt, you ask to the model, why are you generating this text?
Brilliant. Okay, sorry. And Alessandro, I saw the slide afterwards. Now I'm terribly intrigued for you to explain it.
Yeah, because I created also, because you asked me, I don't know if you remember, but you asked me to see where is the human and where is the AI.
Right.
So I put it in the flow. So this is the FAQ workflow, which is a little bit more editorially manual on some point of view, because of course you are answering some question that in some cases already have an answer on the SERP, so you need to be really exhaustive and specific. And but I'll get you through it. So the first thing is the list of queries to identify the questions, and this can sound an easy task, but it's not. And why? Because we have three ways here also. So your theory is good. we have two ways to identify. No, actually we have more, but these are the three that we always use to identify the questions. So the first one is to use the PA from Google, Bing, and every search engine that we can use. As we can see, I put, of course, the same question that we're asking all the time. Is natural language generation legit? So from here we get some question that we can answer, but we don't have just that, because sometimes we want to answer to queries that we don't have in the PA. And so we also use unstructured text that we already have, and we answer to a question that we want to answer in the first place. So we create the question starting from the answer. And the third one, of course, is the Google Search Console, from where we can find the intent that are already in the pages, for example, on the PLPs, and we filter for how, what, when, why, and the usual one. And so getting back to the workflow, this is the first step, and this is divided between human and AI, because of course you need to have criteria to choose the right queries, and this is part also of the second step, which is the editorial selection of the question. Here you need a human because you need to find the best fit for every page. The third step is the summarization of the answer based on the chosen question. So we summarize the SERP, and we have a tool in Wordlift that we created that help us to summarize, for example, the first 2, 3, 4, you can choose results, and you can also match them all in one question. After that, you get your answer to the question, but you always have to fact check the results and have an editorial review. And then we have the validation, and this is in part from what Alessio was talking about before, is a step shared also with the content team of EssilorLuxottica. We send them the question, and they see if the tone of voice is good, if the answer is exhaustive, etc. And I'm going to the results. So for the data to text, meaning the PDPs, product descriptions, we saw a plus 43.73% click increase in the first 3 months of the experiment with the causal impact analysis. And for the FAQs, we saw a plus 47.19 click increase percentage on the FAQs. On the PLP pages where we apply the FAQs, and this is a 6-month versus the previous 6-month data. So I want to close with my vision, and I think also the vision of Wordlift, which is that the future of the NLG is not in content writing, but in content design, meaning that you're not anymore just a writer, but you became like an architect of the article or of the answer you want to provide, and you can use in the system of the NLG that you built every tool and every thing that you can use to answer the question or create your article. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. So I mean, from my perspective, that all made total sense, and I like the idea that we're architects building articles and content using this as a tool to help us to fill the gaps. Are we building the structure and then using the machine to fill the gaps and then correcting it when it gets the gaps wrong?
I mean, if you think about it, it's just like in the old days when you started to write an article, you started from the architecture of the article. So now you're just implementing some stuff into it, some tool to help you put it down. But I mean, I think it's something that we always did.
And when you're validating the content that the machine spits back, what form does that take, Alessio? I mean, you show somebody the content, they correct it and send it back to the machine, or they just say that's no good?
So as I was saying before, it's not a one-off process, but it's a continuous improvement over the fine-tuned model. And to ensure that all the people involved in this process are on the same page, we need to, we have this shared spreadsheet where even non-technical users can see what text was given to train the model. And in that way, they can add comments, and in this way, we can iterate from that feedback and start to fine-tune the model even more. But yeah, in this way, the model is aware of every change inside the organization to be on the same page also for the tone of voice, you know, and other things like the quality overall.
Right, and I mean, the tone of voice, Alessandro, is basically predicting what word is going to come next if I would be to say it. So I use the word groovy, despite the fact that I'm not talking about music. So a machine copying my tone of voice would put groovy in a lot. Would it not tend to overdo it?
No, because we train it with different word, and we also can put the frequency of the word. We don't want this word too much. We can use it just in I don't know, in 10 sentences out of 150. But yeah, this is a risk. This is the risk at the beginning that we face with the model.
Right, and to actually fine tune a model, what I'm hearing is there's a huge amount of work to start with no output, and therefore incredibly frustrating and very difficult to convince your boss or the person paying to actually invest in this, because he's saying we're going to have 3 months where we're just going to be pushing data into the model, fine tuning it, have this kind of process going on, and in 3 months we're not going to have any production. Is that hugely difficult to sell?
I mean, you sell the magic, and no, but if you explain it well, I think it's not that hard. Because, of course, if you have a company like the one that Alessio working for, that have all the data in the right place, it's easier. If I don't know, we did some work in some cases where we need to scrape all the site and get all the data directly from the product description, which was crazy if you think about it. We need to create the prompt from there, and it was really hard to do it. But luckily we have Eli in our team, which that is really good in this, so we achieve with it.
Right. I mean, Alessio, is this really majorly for big companies rather than small companies? If you're a small company, you can't really afford to fine tune the model, or can you just piggyback on other people's models?
So I believe that to do such precise validation, you need to have a good editorial team. In our case, we do 2 or 3 passages of validation, also because we often treat medical topics. And I mean, it would be bad for the company reputation if the text generation would be unsupervised, because the models are unreliable right now, and the reputation damage that generated text could done would be terrible for a company,
Right.
But yeah,
from my perspective,
I believe that. Yeah, sorry. I believe that this kind of machinery is better for big companies rather than smaller ones. But I believe that also there are a lot of benefits to train with your data a model, even if you are a small company.
Right. And what kind of quantities of data are you looking at to be able to actually make sense of fine-tuning this for example, my tone of voice? How much data would I have to feed a machine in order for it to get my tone of voice and to understand how I would express myself? Are we talking 15 pages? Are we talking 50,000 words? Are we talking 100,000 words?
So we are lucky enough to have great marketing teams with a lot of content, but I don't know exactly the number of words needed in fine-tuning, but I know the size, more or less, of the dataset that needs to be passed to OpenAI. That is roughly from 30 megabytes to 50 megabytes of text. That is a lot for some companies. Luckily for us, it's not. But yeah, I would say 30 to 50 megabytes of text to have a good fine-tuned models.
Right. Okay. Alessandro, what can you add to that in terms of kind of the quantity of data that you're dealing with at Wordlift each time? Can you guys bring it all together? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just looking into the file that we shared with but it was before Alessio was here. Was in EssilorLuxottica in the very first test we did with them. If I'm not mistaken, sorry, but now I'm okay. if I remember well, it was like it was 300 in the very first beginning. 300 product description generated ad hoc for that specific task, and we started to train the model, but it wasn't really enough. So we started with that. We generate some other. We generate 150. These 150 were revised, and after that, I mean, we were at kind of 500, 450, and we were good to go. But there was some cases where we used, for example, post from the social networks, or just to get the tone of voice of the brand. And so it really depends on what we need to do. For this specific task on the product description of the sunglasses, could sound easy, but it's kind of difficult because every time you can have the same completion again and again and again, and the same sentences repeated in all the different completion, which is not good, and you need to have diversity inside.
No, for me that's huge and makes total sense. If you don't give enough data, it will just repeat itself. And while you were talking, I actually just calculated how much data we've got that I could potentially push into GPT-3 to train it about brand SERPs and knowledge panels and my tone of voice. Answer is I've only got 6 megabytes. I need 5 times more content in order to be able to actually train the model according to Alessio's idea. But 6 megabytes is a lot already, I think, for a small company like Kalicube. So Alessio, can you wrap it up from your perspective, and then Alessandro, I'll let you do the same.
So to wrap up this wonderful roundtable, I would say that GPT-3 and ChatGPT and all the derivatives are just tools, and you need to identify what is your use cases. We have seen in the last months that GPT-3 is really good at generating marketing copy, short product description, category description, and even a couple of question and answers. And I guess that as with every tool, there is a learning curve, and understanding what are the limitation and how we can overcome this limitation by giving more data, or for example, by structuring better the prompt, is the winning key here to learn to use this tool in a responsible and interesting way.
Brilliant. So the winner is ultimately going to be the one with the best prompt. Alessandro, do you want to wrap up for your side?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm totally agree with this perspective of Alessio. This is a tool. In some cases, a great tool. You can use it. You don't have to be afraid of it, and you need to integrate it in your workflow, because you can do great thing with it. And you don't need to put it in the bad thing world, but you can use it as it is.
Absolutely brilliant. That's absolutely delightful. Thank you so much, Alessio. Thank you, Alessandro. Thank you to everyone who was watching. That's the end of this show. I really, 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 really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it, and I've been taking notes and calculating how much data I've got. Now I've got 1/5 of the data I need. I need to learn to write the prompts, and maybe then I will win the automatically generated content battle that I've been fighting in my brain since 3 o'clock yesterday morning. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a lovely, lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jason. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.